It's not bad. Good morning, everyone.
Morning.
Good morning.
Morning.
Hope everybody had a wonderful and hopefully restful Easter. We're all back in business, so welcome. I guess, Mr. Moore, if you would do a roll call for us, please.
Yes, sir. Good morning, everyone. Mr. Barron?
Here.
Mr. Bento?
Here.
Mr. Peterman? Mr. Reinerberg?
Here.
Mr. Toops?
Here.
And Mr. Wallace?
Here.
Do you have quorum?
We have a quorum, thank you. Okay, everybody got a copy of last month's meeting minutes? I'd like a motion to accept those as presented.
So motion.
Second.
Second.
Any discussion?
Mr. Barron?
Yes.
Mr. Bento?
Yes.
Mr. Reinerberg?
Yes.
Mr. Toops?
Yes.
Mr. Wallace?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay, thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
Appreciate that. Ms. Hugh, would you like to
Yeah,
bring
good
us up to
morning.
speed on the financials, please?
Okay, good morning.
Morning.
As of March 31st, total cash and temporary investment were $1,046,241. Total current asset, including 361 for account receivable, were $1,046,602. and 602. Other asset, which is including the property held for resale, were $453,638, and for a total asset $1,500,240, and net position as of March 31st were $1,500,240. For the income statement, the only activity for the month of March was investment income totaled $84. Therefore, the net position at end of the period were $1,500,240. On the Schedule A, you will see the two property which we held for development and the total cumulative investment as of March 31st. And the next page will be cash and temporary investment, which show the total cash were $1,046,241. I'm happy to answer any question you may have.
Question for everybody. When do we start seeing the CYA sports revenue interest coming in? When that bond was approved, right?
Approved, but I don't know, has it been negotiated, and I don't know what the process is.
It's closed, but I think it's annually that you receive it, so I think it's a year after.
So it's after the first year,
Yeah.
and then so it's just one lump sum.
Well, it'll be an annual amount based on the outstanding principal at the time,
Right.
a percentage of that.
Do we know what that number is?
Because remember, it's a diminishing return as the.
Oh, no,
as the
no,
print-
yeah, I understand. I thought it was gonna be on a monthly basis. We get the interest, but we don't. We just get it once a year?
Once per year.
Once per year, okay.
I think so.
So that's not at the beginning, it's at the end of the year.
Yes.
One other question on the property that we hold. We're, in negotiations, and that's proceeding, I'm assuming. There's two line items for our schedule of, on the assets. There's 3920 and 3930. Is that going to wipe all that off, or is it just one of the two pieces of property?
I mean, Mr. Donahue.
Your question was the
If you look
possible
at Schedule
disposition?
A, there's like
The two properties.
3920 and 3930. One of them has 39,000 on the books. One of them has like 400.
114.
And so, we're negotiations to, is that all of that property, or is that a piece of that property? I don't know.
3920 Burton's Point Road is the property that we're currently negotiating for the sale of. So it's just the one.
3930, and that's just making sure that's a real value in terms of, on an ongoing basis, there's 400,000's worth of value on that.
Well, the 3920 has the 400.
No, 3930 though has all the value on it on our books. And I'm just.
Right.
Sure.
We had that problem before where we really needed to change
Right,
that around because
yeah.
that was mentioned before.
Good
Yeah,
point.
you're right, Jim. That was something we had
I'm
talked
just
about.
not sure what's left once that piece is sold, and is it really, we're kind of getting rid of all of it? I don't know. Right now, we'll have a book gain on the one piece, which I don't know is realistic.
Adjusting.
taxpayer.
I can tell you how those numbers
20
probably
and
got
30.
there, which is that they're a function of the amount of money we've actually put into the property. So that the piece in the back that has the 400, that's the vein parcel that we purchased, whereas the other piece is the former school board parcel, which we didn't have to pay any money for. So that's why the one has the higher.
But essentially, they're one parcel for all intents and purposes. We're not going to have anything that is, I'm making sure I understand.
I mean, are they deeded separately?
So-
They are deeded
They are
separately,
deeded
so they could be sold separately.
Yes.
Yes.
So where we are is, without going into the discussion about negotiation, where we are at this point is certainly we would like to sell all of it. From a usable property standpoint, it makes it easier. Could there be potentially an opportunity? Yes, but at this point, we are currently only speaking about 3920.
And the only reason for my interest is it looks like we have kind of a mismatch in just we're going to
Book
get
value.
value for one and have a gain on our books. And then what's left will have a large asset attached to it, but probably isn't worth that.
Correct.
And so it'll end up washing. But I just want to make sure that it's straight as we're going through.
Good point.
Because it's not real, it's great to turn it to cash, but I don't think it's going to be the income that it may show
Okay.
based upon that slice of the property, the 39,000 or whatever.
So you're saying can we adjust these numbers
I don't know.
based on what the assessed value, or we determine a value? Can we
Yeah, I mean,
We can,
adjust those?
yeah,
Or
based on
treat it
the
as
recent
one-
assessed value, we can, yes.
As one overall parcel kind of and allocate it just so that the value matches to what the sales price will be.
I think it's a function of what the board wants to see. I mean, other boards in the past have wanted to see how much do we have, what number of dollars do we have in this property? And
Okay.
that's what that really reflects.
As long as it wasn't
Okay.
selling, it didn't matter.
Right.
But
Right.
now that it is, I just don't want to show a fictitious gain. That's all.
And I think we can discuss that when we get to the budget in just a second. So
It
that
was
way
just
we can-
financials, and that's
Yeah,
why.
And that way we can, going forward, we know how the board would like to see that property reflected on the statements.
That is how we get it, was the acquisition price on one, and then just acquired the other
The other
piece. So that's how it got to be.
Yeah, we just
in that.
will end up with a gain, and then what's left
Right.
won't be worth
Won't be-
what's left on
Correct.
on the books, and we'll end up with a loss at some point. And so, just does if we could wash it to some extent.
Okay.
That's all.
Normally, end of the year, if the property held for resale, we always adjust to the current assessment value. I don't see what have been done in the past, but we're going to do it going forward.
Great.
Yeah.
I just
That'll work.
it makes sense.
Okay. Well, I guess, really, if there's no further discussion on that,
I've got one other question. Refers to the note on the bottom of page 1 with regards to PER properties. Maybe if I could just get my memory refreshed, do we begin paying them out on that incentive grant this year? Is that correct?
Well,
I don't remember how all that went
correct me if I'm
down.
wrong, they haven't, at this point, you all approved the funding, but however, they have not completed the work to meet the necessary requirements.
Okay.
The question does come into play, however, again, once we'll talk about this, I guess, a little bit more. At what point is that no longer on the books? At what point do we say that grant is not available? It has been some significant time since you all have approved that. So the decision ultimately will need to be made, because right now it's still sitting as I'm not an accountant, but I would say a liability, basically, because it's hitting your books that you owe $300,000 to someone at some point.
What was our original timeline on that? Was it last year that the work had to be completed?
well,
You don't know.
there's a balance. Well, yeah, I've been in this for a long time.
I don't
but-
remember myself.
But there's a balance here because, as everyone knows, the EPA had a lot to do with a lot of the delays. So I'd kind of maybe defer to council, because we can say that maybe this grant will sunset in our minds, but we have to be careful because the delays were not just the developer's delays. So we have to look and see. And Jeff, maybe you could speak to that.
Yeah, I'd have to look back at the documents to be sure, because I wasn't here when this one started either, but my recollection, I think, is that the documents themselves were tied to EDA or EPA's completion.
They were. They were. That's how I remember it as well. So, you know, that was many years ago, and
Right.
I think
They're getting close.
9 years ago, something like that. So
9
so-
years, yeah,
yeah.
2010.
So staff will look into that, if the body would like. We can look into that and report back in May as to where.
Maybe it'd be good to revisit it for the.
I think just so that everybody, the current members here would be aware of what was going on.
Yeah, 'cause
And maybe also in that regard, if I could suggest, we have not really heard anything from them in a year or so. It'd be nice to know just what's going on as far as, I don't think the EPA is just about done with what they're doing, so maybe if we could get some sort of a quick update from them, even if it's just a little snippet in writing. It'd be kinda
So, I
nice.
mean, if we started this 9 years ago with them, do they still understand all of the agreements from 9 years ago as well? I mean, did this grant even exists and what the requirements are? I mean, are they still tracking on that? Maybe we can do some outreach with them.
Well, so staff will reach out to Mr. Salmons and
Yeah.
the folks and see if we can get a response. As you know, we have not been as fortunate to have that consistent dialogue, but we will reach back out and see what kind of update we can provide.
We send them a letter?
We can.
Send a letter.
We can.
That'd be good,
Okay.
just to keep that dialogue alive.
Yeah, that really got extended.
9 years.
Yeah, well, it got pushed back at least 4 years that I'm aware of by the EPA. So,
Yeah.
you know, we have to just.
And they had a
yeah.
note, but they paid the note.
Yeah, so we need to go back, and I think, you know, to Mr. Barham's point, we really need to go back and revisit everything, realign it.
We do, yes.
Yeah, and then get with Mr. Solomons and make sure that he's aware that, you know,
Right.
the clock may have been delayed, but it's still ticking, so. So that's good. So I guess that's a, oh, we still need to approve the plan.
I think we can send those to
Interesting guy.
audit, so we need to vote on that.
It's the board's pleasure, but you can simply send them to audit without a vote if that's your.
Okay.
Oh, golly, dang, yeah. I guess you did it.
Well, then it's a perfect segue into our next topic, and that's the
Everybody knows that.
fiscal year 2020 budget. And I guess Mr. Wallace and Mr. Reinberg, if you want to lead that discussion, please.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. So before you received an email, the proposed 2020 budget. And with that, you'll note some significant changes to previous year's budgets, just in anticipation of expenditures that may occur over this year. Again, it's just, you know, the budget, we can put it down there and not spend it, we can exceed it, right? But they're just some rough numbers, and I'll actually let Mr. Wallace speak to some of the major changes that we had proposed this year.
Sure. I guess one of the biggest one was the business development, where we were at, I think we were, or the meetings, we were at $12,500. We haven't used that. We've had it on the budget for quite some time. So we decided that we would take that off. Felt that it was necessary from that. We would be, excuse me, because we went through a lot of notes. I've got to read through everything here right now. We went and put $2,000 more into, $2,500 more into the business development side to help out, you know, with certain items that may be coming up. We put in travel. We decided to keep $1,000 on the travel side. We haven't used it, but felt with this upcoming, there was a potential, I think, with a Blacksburg seminar. There's a potential for some spend, so we wanted to keep $1,000 in the travel. We removed $1,500 out of that travel expense. Training, same thing. We went to $1,000 on that from the $2,500. Burton's Point the property there may not close until 2020, and it has some issues, so we felt that we keep that at $5,000 to keep the money there for that going along. The grounds, we still keeping $1,000 on that because there could be some cleanup after that property closes as well. The 3930 Burton's Point, the legal, we're keeping at $5,000. Contractual, we're put that down to zero. Grounds, we went to $1,000. And please ask questions, as you know, anybody has any comments or questions or that. We went through a lot of discussion on a lot of different things here. And I know Robert was a part, we were both discussing, so Robert, any points that you want to bring up in this as well, I appreciate it.
Travel.
So on the travel, the recommendation was that we leave some in there. Certainly you have an opening for another commissioner. So we left the travel at 1,000 just in case they needed to attend the VITA conference, which there is one coming in May.
And that's in Blacksburg.
And that's, yes. So, and we also wanted to make sure with the training, the same situation. It's not a lot, but I think that's enough to cover 2 people, if necessary, that want to have it or have a refresher, if you will. I'd like to back up, if we could, just quickly to line 559022, which is the local incentive grants.
60,000.
That shows the 240,000, and then it has it says Government Opportunity Fund. We would need to change that to Commonwealth Opportunity Fund because that's the actual name of the incentive. It used to be called the Governor's Opportunity Fund. My question would be: we do have the note of 180,000 from the state and 60,000 from PPIC. If we could, a couple things. One, we need to change, I think, instead of saying the state of Virginia, say Virginia Economic Development Partnership, because that's who it's coming through. And also, should we have that separated out as lines? So one line says 180,000 from VEDP, and the other one says 60,000 from PPIC, but it indicates clearly that it is a match. So that, because next year we won't have 100, or
But we need
another
to
year
separate
from
that
now,
out.
we won't have
Yeah.
180,000
Yeah.
from the state.
Right.
It'll just be our match.
Right.
So, can we do that, Ms. Hu?
Yes.
Okay. And that's all in an effort of transparency, so that everyone knows where it came from. So,
Thank you for that,
Yep.
that point about the funds there.
yes.
Are we going to close on the property in the next fiscal year, in the 2020 fiscal year, or before?
It'll be in FY '20.
Okay, do you have that in there?
We don't know what we're going to make on that.
Because that's,
Right, so I believe we did, yeah, we don't,
Still negotiating it.
yeah, because we're at a point of, we're still negotiating, we're still waiting for this to be completed from an EPA standpoint. Originally, that would have been February, then it got moved to August, could be November. It's, we could guesstimate and say we know that there's 200 some odd thousand that has to be paid back to the EPA. So you could certainly put that amount in there, but
well, the dollar's coming in and then the dollar's going out, and that's all. That's just a huge difference to the budget if we're trying to. And I'm just throwing it
I
out.
leave that up to the board is how you want to.
So you're saying put in a estimated 200,000 gain and then loss, or actually it would be what, loss then gain?
And it's back to what the value of the property is, because if we take the full value of the property, there's no gain. It just wipes out the asset. If you take the one piece, there's a gain of like 400,000, which then has the what we have to give back to the state, which is like 200. And so that's why I was asking that question before. It's going to become important here soon. Under one way, there's no gain at all. It just liquidates
It's a
an
wash,
asset. We then have, there's no liability on the books for paying the state back, and so that's another expense.
So I mean, this is just a budget, and we can change, we can amend it as that occurs, or as we get more fidelity, we could put it
Again, I just want to
forward.
make sure we know that's out there, because that's a big kind of thing hanging out there that would change the budget dramatically.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but can we not handle that in a footnote? Since it's just a budget item, it's not a,
It would be better if it's probable it will happen between now and June 30 of '20. it would be better to go ahead and get it in budgeted,
Okay.
so that, anything that we know, doesn't have to be, probable, but anything that's possible, it's already ongoing and we expect it would, it's better to go ahead and get it into the annual budget. There can also be a budget amendment in the opposite direction if we get into April, May of next year and it hasn't happened.
I will say this is a good discussion, and it will be a great segue into where we, as we move forward to move our money, possibly with a different lender, in CD versus cash that we can access. So, so what if we do this? What if we add 200,000? Does that sound?
There's a couple questions. One is to get an answer on whether it's going to take all of that value from the property for both 20 and 30 and 40, or 20 and 30, which would be either the 400 and something or just the 39. If it's just the 39, there's going to be a gain.
Right.
It's a book gain but it's a gain. We then, as that cash flows in, it has to flow back out, a big chunk of it to the governor, back to the state, and that's an expense to me. And so that would change the income statement by, almost 100%. And
So if we're just for budget, because this isn't the real numbers for budget, do we have any idea what numbers would you propose then for the gain and then loss?
in my mind, it would be nice to take almost all of that value for the property and attach it to the sale so that there's a remnant piece left, almost reversing what we had, because there's going to be some property left, but it's just not going to have the same amount of value because it's the more developable piece. If we could do something like that, then there really wouldn't be much gain. It would be liquidating an asset, and then we'd need to put the piece that's going to go back to the state as an expense for the year.
So we have 39,000, so 40,000 and 450. Because it's just budget, right? It's just proposing, we're estimating on this. So if we put for, just for a single, like 2 line items, a payment to.
We know that if it sells, the payment to the state is real, and that amount is, do we know for exact?
I think it's
200,000.
So that would be a line item in, just like
Let's do
you've
that.
got the governor,
Yep.
you've got the other ones there, and then,
So we'll do 200,000 for, that would be like a repayment to Virginia, was it DEP?
well, it's
or-
expense, it's not a repayment because it's not on our books right now.
Right, it's a non-operating,
Yeah.
so you got an inflow of revenue, and then you got, which is non-operating, and then you got an outflow of revenue, which is an expense. So, yeah, I mean, you could offset them if that's the better thing to do.
But the property allocation's important because we either have a gain of like 400,000, which would be income somewhere, or it's just a liquidation of an asset. And so that's why I'm saying that's the first question. And then the second one, we know we're going to have that expense, and it's not a liability on the books right now. It's nowhere. So we need to show that.
Let's just put 2 items in, and can we do that in the budget? Just 2 items, one
We're going to
showing
vote on it
it.
next month anyway, so we
Yeah.
can get more information and kind of have a final.
Yeah.
That's a huge difference in what we're doing, and everything you've done is great, but that's a piece out there that's going to change us pretty dramatically in the coming year. So it should be on there.
Going back to that 022 again, and I apologize, I didn't catch this, but that 240, the state only gave us 180. We've got 60 already lined up for the local from us, so there shouldn't have been a 240. It should have been a 180.
It should be
That
broken out to where it's.
Well, so we have
180.
it broke out, but we added a 60 back into the 240.
Yes, the 60 should be separated so that.
We did separate it.
The 60 is ours.
So that should be
Right.
The other should be the 180 and 180, so it washes.
Yeah, just 180.
That's
Just-
the PER
Because what we
property.
show on there now
Oh,
is the
that is the
60,000,
PER
and then we
property.
added the 60,000 back in again the second time.
We had that question, staff, that 60 is different.
The $60,000 I believe you're referring to, that would be line item 559022. I believe that represents the $60,000 for the PER?
No, because the footnote
Property?
is, that's for
No.
the Commonwealth Opportunity Fund, where they have to do a
That's-
match of $60,000. So it's one, that should be the Commonwealth Opportunity Fund, 180 from VEDP and 60 from PPIC to go into,
Per the agreement.
But per the agreement, the match.
Okay, I was under the impression that was part of the 300,000 over 5 years. I believe they were counting that as a liability in year one. I believe that's what that $60,000
That
was
should be, that
referenced
should be the 60,000 for the liability for, in case this year they come up and have, we want the budget this year, even though they won't be open until June 2020. So ultimately, they won't invest $40 million and create 20 jobs until June of 2020, if you will. So to be prepared for that, we put that in the budget now. The question was, I don't think we ever had the 60,000 from the PER in this budget.
We didn't.
So that was not put in the budget. This should be the grant for, again, 180 coming in from the state, and then 60 coming in from PPIC for the match, because we have to do that potentially.
Robert, so it's my understanding that the 60 is the other because we do need to get it into the budget.
Yes.
Okay.
And so that's the 60. The 240 is the two parts, the 180 and
And
the
the
60.
60.
And if they, actually, since this has come up both in an internal conversation and this meeting, I think we should break those out. So because that question is going
Yes.
to continue
Yes.
on if we
Sure
don't.
is.
Because it's gonna show that where's the 180? Where did that go from a line standpoint?
So, and then going back to that 180, this is basically over a 3-year time, so should the 180 be budgeted in 2020 when it's going to be paid out in 21 and 22?
The 180 again is coming from the state.
Right.
So that's coming in all at one time.
Our 180 is 60, 60, 60.
Yeah.
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 It's just confusing because everything is
Yeah.
60 grand.
Right. Yeah. Right. So everything is 60 grand. But yes, it should.
But we could reference that second 60 and just put PER with it
Yeah.
as that, because that would clear it up, because
Right.
it is confusing. Because it's
I mean, we
exactly.
have it right here.
Yeah, okay.
PPIC, yeah, we have a note in there.
Yeah, it's just.
Yeah. The other 60, needs to have a footnote, because right now that 240 is the 180
Yeah.
plus 60. The other 60 needs to reflect PER.
Yeah.
Any other questions on the budget?
Yeah.
So it sounds like we probably need to get this cleaned up. Not clean,
It's not
but
usually
tweaked.
this complicated.
No,
We had a
no,
lot more
um,
activity this year.
And I think that's a great thing. What you have is,
Only thing he's doing
we
down there
want to
is
make sure
aggregates.
that, you don't have to vote on this today. We try to get it to you early, so that way, in May, vote, it's ready. That way, by June, everything is set and ready
Right.
to go. So we will clean it up.
I think, I'm not
Come back
sure.
with some.
And it
Maybe it
does
just hasn't
make
worked out for him.
the letter or whatever, finding out how the PER thing works a little more important, because
Yes.
we're starting to put it in the budget.
Right.
We really don't know what we've got.
Right. So just to be clear, so that, there's one line that is 60 on the 559022. There is one line that is 60. That should reflect PER. Then the 240 needs to be broken down to 180 and 60 to show 180 towards coming from the state. That will be paid out. That's a wash. And then the 60,000 match
That's
from
the Commonwealth Opportunity
PPIC.
Fund.
That's the Commonwealth Opportunity, and it needs to say Commonwealth Opportunity Fund.
Are they tracking that?
We'll make sure we have that. We'll make sure we have that done. I'm positive they are tracking that.
All right.
And then again, going forward, your budget will have just the 60 for PER, depending on where that lands, and then the 60 saying match, Commonwealth Opportunity Fund match.
Okay.
Okay, well, just a quick question. It's a very trivial thing, but on the travel and training, we did provide some assistance to the city at some point, and so I'm just wondering if that's enough on that line item.
That's where that originally came up
And-
from. That
yeah.
was when Mallory was asking for help.
Yeah, exactly. And I don't know if that's going to reoccur.
Well, I will say this. I will say this. You know, we have attempted in our budget discussions to make sure that we as a staff have enough monies to travel. And working with Ms. Spivey and her team, I think we've been successful at that. We'll know on March the 14th, or May 14th. I'm sorry. But I think we've asked for what we feel like is the amount to do some travel, to do some more travel. So we appreciate the offer. But I think this adjustment works for you as well as us.
And if you needed more, we can always
We
just,
can put
this
it-
is
we can
just
put
an
it back
estimate
in,
plan.
right.
So we
We can, but I just, you know.
Because we hadn't spent it, so it's just like,
But that's where it originally came from. And I mean,
did.
you've been showing the return on the investment
Yeah.
the city's putting into your area. So, I mean, hopefully they'll continue to fund it.
That's kind of why I was suggesting it again.
Yeah, I talked to finance there.
I don't want any restrictions here.
No, I think we have been successful, and I think our new budget reflects that. And so we will, but if, you can count on the fact, though, that if we do need some help, we will ask you.
And we have helped, yes.
Yes, yes. So we will make those corrections and changes, return that back to the Budget Committee, and then have it ready for May.
Okay. Sounds good.
Any other questions or suggestions?
Good discussion.
It is. So we'll revisit this again next month
May.
at
Yes,
our
sir.
meeting in May and try to put it to rest. Right? I know you want that. I know you want that done. Okay. If there's no other comments, we'll move into new business. And we have some guests here from Union Bank.
Yes.
Yeah.
I will turn it over to Mr. Reinenberg.
So as the commissioners are aware, of the last month or since our last meeting, I have been contacting financial institutions who have some kind of direct tie to Portsmouth in an effort to explore better opportunities for our money, where, in terms of rates of return. It's currently in Town Bank. Town was one of the ones I of course, contacted. And in doing so, I've received, some responded, some didn't. Wells Fargo didn't, for example, respond at all. But really, the top two that came back with pretty good rates were Union Bank and Town, and Union was by far the most competitive in terms of interest that they can offer us. And I invited the two Union vice presidents that I've been dealing with, specifically Mr. Alvin Payne, is who I've been dealing with, to come and speak to us today, explain the interest rates that they've offered us, as well as a little bit about what Union has here in the city of Portsmouth and anything else he wants to offer. So, and I apologize, sir, I didn't.
Paul Buckley,
yes.
that's okay. Thank you.
So.
Thanks. Good morning, Mr. Commissioner, Board. My name is Alvin Payne. This is my market manager, Paul Buckley, and we're here representing Union Bank this morning. Thank you for having us.
Welcome aboard. Thank you for being
Absolutely.
here.
I'll give you a little background about myself and how I landed in Portsmouth. I'm a country boy from Memphis, Tennessee, and the military brought me here. Graduated in Annapolis in '95, and I was a Navy pilot with VA 123 screw tops in Norfolk. Left the Navy in 2000, and then I married into the area. My wife's family's here, so I'm not going anywhere. And we have 4 boys now, and we purchased her parents' home here in Crystal Lake, and we've lived there ever since. My wife's a school counselor, and a lot of folks ask, Alvin, how'd you go from flying planes to being a banker? I don't know that, but I love it now. I love what I'm doing. Paul and I started banking together.
Yeah, back in 05?
04, 05. With,
04, that's what it was 04.
Yeah, with Wachovia Bank.
Yeah.
And a lot of things have changed since then. Wachovia to Wells Fargo, there 10 years. Then SunTrust, 5 years. The changes and the mergers have landed me here at Union. Paul was there before I was.
Right.
And,
I can tell you a little bit about myself as well. I'm a little more homegrown than Alvin. Actually, I was born at Portsmouth General Hospital. It's no longer here. And I'm the 3rd generation of my family that was married at St. Paul's Church, which is right here. So in downtown Portsmouth. So I've lived here my whole life, 3rd generation in this area as well. And we're a big believer in the city of Portsmouth. I mean, you can see the Union Bank and Trust Pavilion sign right there. So we're heavily invested in this area, and we're actively looking to open 1, if not 2 branches in the market as well within the city of Portsmouth. So we're just, In negotiations right now, obviously it'd be better for us to have an existing structure, and some of the banks have vacated some of their buildings, so we're actually waiting for the leases to expire so we can pick them up at this moment. So yeah, just make it a little more of a quick transition for us. It was that chicken and egg problem of do we wait, get a land lease and build, or do we wait 2 months for a lease to expire, take on an existing building and move right in? So yeah, so we're heavily invested in the city of Portsmouth, and really look forward to the opportunity to do more business with you as well.
Yeah, and I can say Union is extremely aggressive. From the previous banks where I've worked, I like the blueprint and the model that Union Bank presents. It, like I was mentioning to some of you earlier, Union has brought in seasoned bankers from the big banks. Bad choice of words. Experienced bankers from the bigger banks, and they're plucking our brain to ask, hey, what worked over there, what did not work, which way should we not go, which way should we go?
Right. I mean, the great thing about Union Bank and Trust is we are a Virginia regional bank.
Yep.
We span the entire state of Virginia. We're based in Virginia, and we really believe in empowering the people that live and have grown up in the markets where they work. So myself and Alvin, they give us more control, more say in how we involve ourselves within the marketplace. And the decisions that are made here on a local level within the bank as well. So I think that philosophy really will blend in nicely with the city of Portsmouth as well as other municipalities in the area.
Yeah, and with that being said, Grant squeezed us for the highest interest rate we could have, that we could offer. And I actually I'm going to pass out some pins and some information about our money market and our,
Sure.
Our money market and our certificate of deposit, which currently are pretty doggone good. Our money market is an open FDIC account that provides you with the flexibility of having access to the account at will, meaning that there are no penalties for up to 6 withdrawals per month, and the interest rate is guaranteed for 12 months right now at 2.35%.
The key to the money market rate as well is we're in a rising rate environment, as everyone knows. We do anticipate rates increasing. We want to help you make the right decision for the city of Portsmouth. So money market, CD, it doesn't matter to us. It's really about helping you make the sound decision. Whereas the CD rate does have a little bit of a higher interest rate, it locks you into that rate for 13 months. It will not change. It will not fluctuate. And there's a penalty to access the funds. The money market rate right now is 2.35%. That's already come up a full percentage point in the last 4 months from where it was. So rates are on the rise. We anticipate rates increasing in June. If they do increase, the money market rate increases automatically as the rates increase, whereas the certificate of deposit does not. And also with the money market account rather, you have access to the funds at no penalty. So it's really, we want to make sure we're giving you all the information that you need to make the sound decision for the city and for the intention of the funds.
Yeah, so these were the best options that we had based off of the information that Grant and I had discussed. We had talked a bit about maybe blending the vehicles. In my opinion, I would ride the money market until we see what the Fed does, maybe in June or later in the year.
Right.
Because as Paul said, we are in a rising rate environment, and just hearing some of the discussion this morning, flexibility seems to be an option that needs to be on the table. It takes a simple call, say, hey, Alvin, we need to add funds or remove funds from this account, and you have 6 times to do that per month with the money market. Certificate, yes, higher rate, however, you're locked in. So it may be a discussion, some items you want to discuss further of which way to go, or blend it, or one or the other. But my suggestion would be money market to start out with. Get a feel for the Feds, what's going to happen in your direction, and maybe lock in the certificate later on down the road if rates do rise. If not, keep it in the money market, but that could be for your discussion.
Any questions you all have for us while we're here, or concerns?
No, I just appreciate you gentlemen coming out and, today, and I think we'll probably have a little discussion right now
Certainly.
on, what we want to do based on all this. So thank you very much.
No, thank you for your
coming
time.
out.
Thank you for your partnership.
Yes, ma'am.
I just wanted to thank you, a different organization, but I know Union really came forward on the financing side for EDA, and gave us the best rate of any other bank as well, which is the other side of the equation. And at that point, I don't think I had a chance to talk to anyone at Union, but I do greatly appreciate
Thank you.
your willingness and desire to do business with the city.
Well, we appreciate that. Like I said, we're heavily involved. We're very dedicated to growing our presence and being a part of this community and in this market as well. We really bought into the market about a little over a year ago with the Legacy Zenith, really Bank of Hampton Roads acquisition. But it was something that was much needed, and they've been eyeing this for a long time. So you'll see a lot more of us.
Yeah, whenever that other bank is on the table too, that's when you get the best out of us. Kind of competitive. I can't help but say it.
That's right.
I mean, I was a pilot, so what do you expect, right? So thanks for throwing that at me, Grant, when he mentioned that. It got me worked up. But thank you for your business, and thank you all for
Really
your time
appreciate
this
it. Thank
morning.
you.
Thank you guys very much. We appreciate
Absolutely.
it. Thank
Sure
you.
thing. Call us anytime.
So with that presentation, I'm happy to answer, any questions about some of the market research I did. And if there are no questions with that, I would, just based on the rates that they propose, move that we immediately, at minimum, transfer all the money to a money market, or if we can have discussion about splitting that 50-50 or 60-40 or whatever. Because right now we're earning nothing, essentially, at town, and we haven't, so.
Two things, I think. Number one is thank you so much for your research and your emails, keeping us all informed. That was great. You did everything. You did all the heavy lifting. All we had to do was read some emails, and it was really informative, so thank you for that. The other thing, too, is maybe for a little bit different reason, I'd like to just go with the one vehicle right now, and that's probably because I'd like to see where the budget goes, what we think we're going to have to do for allocations, if any, and just get our money earning some interest, and also take the advice, Mr. Payne. And then, in June, July, we can make a different decision if we need to. That would just be my suggestion.
I guess my question, so at any time that this is for you gentlemen, the CD, if in June we decide, you know what, we want to put 40, whatever percentage of what we have in the CD, is that rate still available?
Yes.
Or maybe even higher, depending on what the Fed does?
We can guarantee the rate will not lower on the CD. We can offer you 3% later on. It very well may be higher.
Okay.
Once the Fed reconvenes in June.
Also want to make sure that we're in line with the city's thinking, the finance department. So if we go with the money market, then that's a very fluid situation, and that's okay. But if we lock the money up, we need to talk to finance before we do something like that. So I'd kind of just like to consider that,
I mean, 2.35 is better than, yeah, and I mean.
0.0.
And it does, it definitely beats all other, you all are aware by quite a bit, so, I would offer and recommend that we would like that we vote on to move all the money immediately to a money market, to the Union money market.
If I could make a suggestion that I would like obviously I can't make the motion, but we would like to make sure that any vote is pending or contingent upon working with finance to make sure.
That was going to be my
that everything
question is, does it create any issues? Are you okay with?
I'm okay, and I could be. I mean, at some point when you're talking about moving some to a CD, yes, we can work on that together.
Yeah.
But as far as changing banks, it sounds like a good financial condition. A decision to me.
So the motion, or propose a motion to immediately move all the money to the money market at the rate that they provided, and that would just be pending, or as long as it doesn't violate any city financial policy or, legal.
I would second. I mean,
Yeah.
if that's a motion, I'm second it.
And we do it within the next, week?
Do we have
Do it.
money transferring from the state to the town bank that 180,000, or is it already in our account?
Well, what's going to happen is that money actually would come to the city.
City.
City,
and then the
okay,
city
and
would
then the city
transfer
gets,
it,
okay,
yes.
I just want to be sure.
Because
that
technically,
doesn't
it has to
flow.
go through the locality, how the locality is matching, or the vehicle that they utilize to make that match. That's solely up to the locality.
Okay, cool.
So that motion would be to move $1,046,241? Yeah, to move all that, to close the account at Town Bank and to move it to a new account at Union that's providing us an APR of 2.35%.
Yep.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay. All right. Mr. Barron?
Yes.
Mr. Bento?
Yes.
Mr. Reinerberg?
Yes.
Mr. Toops? Yes. And Mr. Wallace?
Yes.
You have a new bank account.
Very good. And again, thank you for all your hard work in getting that done for us, and we appreciate it. Thank you, gentlemen, for being here. We appreciate that very much.
Appreciate your time. Thank you.
Okay.
Excuse me.
Have a great day. I know you got better things to do than listen to us.
This is great. It was very meaningful. Thank you for
And I guess you'll work with our city finance department to
Yes.
do whatever we need to do to get that set up.
Yep.
All right.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen, so much.
Thank you.
You gave it to me before. Thank you. One as well.
Thank you.
All right, guys, thanks. Take care. Okay, well, that's great. Thank you so much again, Mr. Moore. That was great. So moving right along, Mr. Moore, could you give us an update on the BASF site, please?
Yes, just wanted to give you a quick update on where we are from a project standpoint. So certainly, we had the event. That was a great event, announcing the project. Our phones have not stopped ringing since that announcement, which really shows that, and I don't say this a lot, that we're open for business, and I don't say that a lot because we're never closed for business, but certainly the banks and the financial institutions and the developers are now seeing where we are as a body. We also had, can you bring that up on the screen? Our partners at HREDA, or Hampton Roads Economic Development Alliance, put a congratulatory ad in Inside Business, saying congratulations to the city on this win. They are excited, we are excited, and they were a great help and help us kind of put this package together and show our competitiveness to the other 9 localities that we were competing against. Where we are at this point is we are moving forward. They have moved forward with the demolition permits, so we're working through that process immediately. We hope to have those in place within the next 30 to 45 days. So you will see some dirt moving and some things hitting the ground in anticipation of having this up and running by June of 2020. I just wanted to give you that kind of quick update, and we will give consistent updates so that you know that we are committed to making sure this happens and is available by that time. And again, this just shows our competitiveness in the region and, across the East Coast. So happy to answer any questions.
No, just to that comment, I mean, one of the reasons they're here is because of the attractiveness to the port. We've talked about, or I've talked about before, that TPM, that Trans-Pacific Maritime Function, there's 2,500 people that go to that function. About 40% of them are the actual beneficial owners of the cargo in that. This place undersells itself, and it needs to, and that's a great market to go into. Memphis goes in there all the time, and they seem to be getting a lot of business from that. So again, it's something for you to consider. It's not cheap, but it's a very quality type thing.
I'd be remiss if we didn't. We have to. This would not be possible without the port and Dustin and both the Reinhardts, Dustin and John Reinhardt.
You and your dad.
Right. So, they are here because of the port. That made us competitive. We have to, as a locality, as a city, embrace who we are. Port is in our name. We have 2 in our backyard. We need to embrace that. We have done just that on this project, and I can tell you we have several other projects in the hopper now that are doing and taking advantage of that exact same opportunity. We are sitting down and have sat down with the other, what we call port host cities, Norfolk, Newport News, Richmond, and Front Royal, and discussed the expansion of the IRF fund, which is through the state, the Industrial Revitalization Fund. As we've discussed before, there's $1 million that has been set aside just for the port host cities. We're talking about how we can utilize that, how can we work with the port to make sure we capitalize on projects that are port related. And even if they're not port related, because the port is here, again, that money is set aside for us to do some dynamic things. So this gives us a lot of traction in the market. This gives us a lot of opportunities. I will be traveling to the West Coast later this year to have some discussions with some port users over there as to why they're not using the port here and what can we do to bring that business here. We also have another coming up later in May, as a matter of fact, in Atlanta to discuss some other opportunities with some companies. So we are very competitive at this point from a standpoint of, again, our footprint in the region. People are now seeing Portsmouth as they should, as the port city. Nothing against our other sister cities, but we're the best. So I get paid to say that. So at the end of the day, though, we are the most competitive. And I can tell you this project has spawned, while this is a 213,000 square foot facility, we have had inquiries already from everything from 250,000 up to 770,000 square feet of industrial space. So, and that's from the great work with the port, HREDA, and certainly this body. So wanted to keep you all up to date as to where we are.
What is the thing that you were talking about?
That is in March. It's in March.
Oh, so it just
So
happened.
first, yeah, it just happened.
it just
and it's a it honestly is a, and I'm sure you can attest to that. Dustin, you've been to that, haven't you?
I've not been to that.
Well, the port goes there, and they have a booth there. That I don't even know, we might be able to piggyback off the port's booth as well. I mean, it's just it's not inexpensive.
Right.
But it is, we go every year, and it's a place where the networking is extremely strong. It's like speed dating when you go there. It's just, you're just from one meeting to the next for 3 days, and it's intense.
Gotcha.
But it is good.
Well, we're not dating, but I will say that from a standpoint of
Oh, it's romance stuff.
yeah, remote. But from a standpoint of what we do, and you will hear a consistent theme from me, this staff, everything we do is about relationships. We cannot get done what we do every day without relationships, without our relationship with the port, without our relationship with this body, without our relationship with other groups. So we will continue to leverage those relationships more than we have ever before to make sure that we are doing the best for the city and for this board. The relationship with what will now be, I guess, Atlantic Union Bank at some point, but Union Bank and Trust currently. I think that's going to be a great relationship. Certainly they did, as Ms. Spivey pointed out, they were the financing arm that allowed us to claw back the Victory Village site. And that is now a 50-acre site right off of the interstate that will yield some serious opportunities. So they have been aggressive, but in turn, to go along with what Dr. Patton has spoken about continuously, we are a smart city, and we continue to be a smart city by making wise choices. And what we're doing now is making that choice to be aggressive and stay out in front of things. So this is where we are. Again, we will give you regular updates as we can to let you know, just where we are on the timeline.
The Massimo Zanetti site over here, have they given you any indication what they're going to do with that?
We've had discussions. I think where we are, we continue to work from a retention standpoint with all of our existing businesses. So we are in discussions and having talks about, their future plans. I'll just leave it at that at this point.
Real quick point is that guy, talking about some of these conventions and things that come up. I think any of the members here that have anything that would, any of the conventions they go to, the businesses, things like that might suggest and bring that in and let Robert and the city know that these things exist, because there's a lot of places that we all go to, workboat shows and things like that. And, there's a lot of commerce out there, and again, this port is just ripe for all of that. And so we probably need to suggest those things and whatever makes sense too. to Robert and his staff, then they could capitalize on that. So
I'll send you the attendee list from
Please do.
this
that's
past
what we
year.
need to do, is send some
Okay,
information.
that's
And,
good.
yeah. So if there's anybody in you know, in our commission that can help, I certainly go to a lot of things every year as well. So. Okay.
Do we have an active inventory list of available sites and office space in Portsmouth so that if we're out there, we can be talking to people as we've done in the past?
So we have, that's a good segue. We have two opportunities. So we utilize what would be, I guess, the industry standard, which is CoStar. We have access to that from a standpoint of properties available in Portsmouth that the city owns. We actually have our Portsmouth Sale app. That is actually how Preferred Freezer determined that was the site that they wanted, utilizing the app with their developer, with Buddy Adams. So you have two opportunities. What we are working to do, and staff has been great in putting this together, we recently hired, I'm thinking she's in her 6th week now, Miss Biedenbaugh is currently on our team as our, what we call our business intelligence. So she is really putting together our marketing and research for us. So you will receive here soon, hopefully by the July 1, start of the new fiscal year, for all intents and purposes, just some information packets for you all to have, so when you are out speaking and talking about Portsmouth, you have some knowledge behind what you're talking about, but just more informational items for you all. We will also make sure that when we have certain projects and certain opportunities, that you all have some speaking points and talking points that you can speak to and from, so that, again, speaking intelligently about what we have here in the city. So.
Very good. What's going on with the sewage project over in West Norfolk?
So,
We
yeah.
were just talking about that. It's force the water main.
Yeah. So, as you know, you all discussed this item last week last month in closed session, so we won't discuss as far as certain information. But I will say those discussions are ongoing. We did have a meeting with the group to discuss what the options are. Ultimately, there will need to be a decision made with regards to the type of material that will be utilized. I'll just leave it at that. But certainly, this board did step up. I have spoken with the city manager, and there's just a question of how can the city share in that. But we are trying to close that gap. So I think we've made some significant strides, and we'll continue to work. It's just, again, some internal discussions that we have to have as a city staff.
Okay.
So.
That's where we are with that.
Okay.
Okay, does anyone have anything further for the good of the city and the good of the PPIC? If not, we stand adjourned. Thank you so much. Oh, you know what? I did forget that.
Sorry.
Can we go back in?
Yeah, go.
Is that okay? I'm sorry. I
Oh, no, great.
apologize.
Everything's going well with the port. I just wanted to piggyback off what Robert said with our reefer capacity and expansion of VIG is another reason we're growing. The ability to have cold storage on the port and the growth at VIG is something that we are partnering hand in hand. Our sales team is going probably the most aggressive we've ever had to fill that capacity. And when you pair that up with the fund that we got for the state, to promote essentially economic development within port host cities, it's a great advantage that Portsmouth has and the ability to grow more here within the city limits. So we're aggressively looking forward to keep doing that. I think the fund and the guidelines application process should be done around September. That takes a little time to get that going. But opportunities with Preferred is something that fund is directly what is the thought of that should be able to be used, and that's what we're hoping to combine our efforts for.
And again, accept my apologies. What you have to say is extremely important to the body and extremely important to us. And you're certainly been a great partner, obviously, to the city of Portsmouth. So again, thank you.
I'll just, again, for the good of the order too, not related to John, just so people know that.
I think you made that clear.
I just want to make sure.
That's why I said both Reinhardts. That's why I said it exactly like that.
All right, then, Jeff, I'm sorry I did that, but I think we are truly adjourned at this point.
All right.
The pub that probably goes
Apparently there's a bomb threat at the main this morning.
Oh, is that right?
That entire area is shut down. Gotta figure out where I'm gonna park.